This episode is sponsored by txcitizen.com, local New Braunfels news that's exclusively online and completely free. Also sponsored by Sunstone Survival, a veteran-owned company that specializes in custom survival kits and emergency survival gear. Go to sunstonesurvival.biz and enter the code PCGEEK to get 10% off any one-time purchase. Hello everyone, we're here today at Eide's Entertainment, and I am talking with the owner here, Greg Eide. So thanks for letting us do this today, Greg. We came out here just because we wanted to check out your place. We asked some recommendations in the area, and you guys were the first to come up, so I guess you guys got a pretty good reputation, huh?
Well, we've been working on it for over 48 years now, so I hope so.
48 years, that's amazing. I mean, so many businesses in general don't make it that far, but comic shops especially, because all the things that the industry's gone through. Well, first off, why don't we start off with why a comic book shop back in the day?
Well, I collected when I was a kid, and I began collecting. Not that I read comics before I was 8 years old, but I began collecting comics, basically DCs mostly, because that's what there was available. It was either DCs or Dells, back in, say, 58, 59. I had my own collection, which I kept until I was 13. Then I had to abandon it, for not because I didn't like it or anything, but then I kind of grew out of it. And then 5 years later or so, when I was working in a record store, one of my coworkers was leaving some Marvel comics laying around, and I started picking them up, and I read them and said, these are pretty cool. And then I started hearing things on the radio about Neil Adams and the Green Lantern and Green Arrow series, and I looked that up, and I wanted to see what had happened in the 5 years or so that I'd been away, and I became rehooked on comics. I decided the best way to recover my collection was to, just buy other people's collections and hit the flea markets and things like that. And then I started getting doubles, and then I said, well, what am I going to do with the doubles and so forth? And I said, well, I need to sell them, and also wanted to meet other people who were into collecting. So one of the basic ideas in opening the first store was to, build my own collection and to find other people who were into collecting, and even start a club, which we did, which was the Pittsburgh Comic Club, headed by Ben Pondexter.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So what location did this mark for y'all? Like, I assume y'all been at different locations over the years?
Yeah. Well, the first location was Etna. Then we moved downtown to the north side, which is now PNC Ballpark. And then we moved to 940 Penn Avenue, which is still there. It's just down the street. We've been on Penn Avenue for 3 different locations. Then we moved to 1111 Penn Avenue, which is right next door. Then we bought the building at 1121, which is where we are now. So we've had 5 moves all told. We've had secondary shops in the Squirrel Hill and in the North Hills Village at one time or other.
But this is your main shop now, just right. This one?
The one and only, yeah.
Okay. And so, what are some of the things that you've seen over the years? Obviously, that long in the industry, you've obviously come up against some challenges. What are some of the things that come to mind that you had to kind of overcome with, especially the comic book industry being so erratic sometimes?
Well, we had our peak period back at the 1111 Federal 1111 Penn Avenue store next door. That was our peak time. And that was 90 and 91. Those were our peak sales period. And the peak then, that was the death of Superman and X-Men #1 and the beginning of all the variations and so forth. And that was a big speculation market. People were just buying stuff to speculate on it. And then ultimately that stuff, went bust, But we've always managed to find different ways. Part of our strength, and now it's actually not even our strength, it's becoming part of our weakness, is the fact that we are very diversified. But with our diversification nowadays, we're finding some problems. Comics are selling well. Back issues are selling well. New comics do not sell well, and they continue to decline. We're diversified into all types of music and video and so forth, and CDs are on an incredible decline. Video is even now declining on most formats. Blu-rays are okay, but still, it's a declining thing. And back at the when we were at 11, one of our great strengths then was music. In fact, we got a special mention for those who have ever seen Perks of Being a Wallflower. We got a mention in there for our music department because of the author director. He was a customer at the time, and we got immortalized in that movie.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's the common thread I see in shops that have lasted a long time. My personal shop I grew up with back in Texas, they just hit 25 years, and he said the same thing. They had to adapt, they had to adjust. So, like, obviously, one question that always comes up is
Bedrock store?
Do what?
Is that a Bedrock store?
A Bedrock store? No. This is down in Corpus Christi. It's called Comics Plus. Okay. But one question that comes up though is obviously we're in a kind of an age of pop culture where superhero movies are coming out every year, so obviously superheroes are on people's minds. So you're not finding that that's driving people to the comic shops to find out more?
Yeah. Back in the day of the first Superman movie and the first Batman movie, the Michael Keaton movies, and the early Star Wars movies, the movies drove people to come buy product. Batman was incredible in its day. Posters, figures, comics. It was nutty. And then little by little, each successive movie after that, it didn't bring in new people. And it's hard to understand in some ways that, Avengers now having become the highest grossing movie of all time, why it doesn't cause, a new generation of kids to come in and say, I want to find out about Avengers comics. And they don't, because, to them, the delivery system for them is just the movies, and there's going to be more movies, and they don't really, there's an anti-reading thing also perhaps going on, that new generations aren't into reading, and they're also not into having physical product. A lot of people look at having comics and collections at a time now as just taking up too much space and time and everything, and now they can get it delivered via movies or via the internet or whatever, and they don't need the paper physical product anymore.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, that'll change at least a little bit. New collectors, new generations. Obviously, that's what our goal is to. Whenever we visit a shop like yours, is to help promote it and stuff. So, we do want to thank you for coming out today and talking to us. So, if you guys are in the Pittsburgh area, definitely come out and check out Eide's Entertainment.